Independent missions, missions with an established organization. Which is right for you? Let's find out. So in the missions world, whenever you fully decide to be a missionary, the first choice you've got to make, do you go independent or join an established organization? This is a big choice. For a lot of would-be missionaries, this is a decision that they think about for months, maybe even years. And so my hope is that this video is going to help you navigate and wrestle through some of the pitfalls that early missionaries make in their early journey. First up, let's look at some of the things that make independent missions probably a preferable choice for some of you watching this video. Now, full disclosure, I'm an independent missionary. I'm currently not with any established organization. And so, yeah, I'm a little biased towards this, and you'll see why in a moment. But I want to make that very clear from the start because that is the method and the means by which I chose to do my calling here over in Asia. And so maybe someday I'll do a video in the future about why I chose independent missions on top of all the reasons I'm listing here. But needless to say, this is the route that I chose. And so I want to offer that to you as a possibility in your own mission journey. With that said, let's dive into 3 of the reasons why I think independent missions can be a great option for certain people, maybe even you watching this video. The first is autonomy. Autonomy is a huge benefit to being an independent missionary. What do I mean by autonomy? Simply put, you have the right and the means to decide what your ministry is, to who your ministry is to, and to how it's done. Now, whenever you have autonomy like you do with independent missions, that also means the buck stops with you. And so yes, it comes with freedom and autonomy and but it also comes with responsibility. And that's huge. Those with larger organizations also have responsibility, but nowhere near on the level that an independent missionary is going to have. And so if you decide to go the independent route, know that yes, you're going to be able to do what you want, but that means also that you've got to be able to answer for that fact as well. So just keep that in mind. If you're choosing to do independent missions, you're going to have freedom, but with that freedom comes great responsibility. Next on our list is flexibility. Now, I've talked to many missionaries in the field all around the world, not just here in Asia. And I hear very similar things from many of them that are involved with large organizations. It's great for many of the reasons we'll talk about in a moment. But their number one complaint, sometimes they lack the flexibility to do what they believe God has called them to do. How sometimes they got essentially hired to do a mission at a certain place in a certain time. And once that mission has progressed to a certain degree and they're ready to go somewhere else, the ability to change course can be somewhat difficult. And that's by design. Larger organizations are around to make it so that we stay on mission and we stay on target. That's the reason for them. They're the workhorses of the mission world for a reason. They're pushing everything forward with a tenacity that independent guys like myself just can't match. And so because of that, flexibility does suffer sometimes. But as an independent missionary, flexibility is the name of the game. In fact, if you're not a flexible person, you probably won't do so well at independent missions. You got to be able to go with the flow and change on a dime because when you're out here by yourself, things change on a dime. So if you're interested in that, if that's something that excites you, the idea of having to be flexible and open and ready, then independent missions should definitely be on your watch list and something you should maybe consider. And finally, the third thing that I think is wonderful for independent missions is this idea of an expansive and growing network. Now, that's not to say that those in large organizations don't have a network that's growing and expanding each and every day. But, and let's be honest here, I've talked to many of my friends in large organizations. You know what they say? It's so nice to network and get out and talk to people outside of our organization because we have a habit to tend to only focus on those within our group, and that's okay. I mean, there's a perfect reason for that. When you've got an ecosystem set up, when you've got a system set up between you and your coworkers, going outside of that can sometimes be more effort than it's worth. But when you're independent, you don't have those systems in place. You don't have an ecosystem in place for you and other people in your organization. And so you, by necessity, have to have an expansive network. People that you're talking to and networking with and doing ministry alongside in multiple different organizations. Now, for some people, that sounds stressful. They just want a system, they just want a box to follow, and that's okay. That's not something to be knocked at all. But whenever you're doing independent missions, that's not going to happen. You are the network. You are the systems. You are the box that you have to work on. And so, because of that, that requires that you, as the missionary, to build a network that is most useful for you and for people you want to help out. And so that requires some work. I'm currently doing that right now with Silk Road Mission, but it definitely requires some work. But once you get used to it, once you get used to talking to people, once you get used to reaching out to them, sending emails and not cold calling them, but cold emailing them and letting them know, hey, I'm in the city, I would love to talk. Eventually, it becomes second nature. You find yourself making friends, colleagues, and fellow brothers and sisters of Christ everywhere you go. Just as a quick aside, be sure to check us out at silkroadmission.org. Again, that is silkroadmission.org. We're going to get updates from the road, news about what God is doing in this ministry, but also with the ministry of others along the road, as well as cultural updates and cultural insights into the many cultures, peoples, and communities along the road itself. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe our videos. Make sure to follow us for more updates from the road. I thank you so much for your support, sharing these videos, sharing the blog posts on the website. These were all great ways to support the ministry that I'm doing here without having to give a dime. So thank you so much for that. All right, that's enough about that. So we've talked about why going independent might be a great option for you, but now let's shift gears and talk about what it means to go with a large organization and how that might be exactly what is best for you. All right, let's talk support. And no, I don't mean financial support. I mean the network around you that helps you get through life. Now, as an independent missionary, you can build that network up before you go to the field. That's totally possible. But when you join a large organization, the support that you need is already built into place and already available to you from the moment you step forth onto the field. We're talking counselors, we're talking networking with other missionaries, we're talking access to funds if you need it, we're talking about access to insurance and medical doctors. All the support that you would need to fulfill your mission is available to you, and most importantly, everyone on your team. And so if you're going on a team, which you should if you're going through a large organization, then all of those things are available to you. But I want to stress again and again and again that the support you'll get from other missionaries is second to none, especially those in your organization. And so for many people like myself that are choosing to go independent, honestly, this is the one thing that I could say I regret not having the most. Because as an independent missionary, I'm on my own. And yeah, it doesn't mean I don't have missionary friends here that are willing to help out. It just means that by and large, when something goes wrong, it stops with me. I've got to figure it out. But with a large organization, you have the support necessary to not only weather that storm, but also weather the storm alongside others. And that is honestly worth its weight in gold. So definitely take that heavily into consideration if you're deciding to either go independent or join a large org. So now let's talk resources. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about all kinds of things. Buildings, compounds and Bibles, and evangelism and Bible study materials. I'm talking medical clinics and libraries and hospitals. I'm talking schools. I'm talking houses and homes and apartments. I'm talking the stuff that life is made of. It requires resources. And ministry requires resources. Now, even if you join a large organization, you're probably still going to have to fundraise. That's just the reality of missions right now. But there are some organizations where that's not the case. And so the resources they have to pull to bear for the mission are enormous. And so joining a large organization means you, as the missionary, get access to a portion of those resources yourself. Does that mean that you're going to get rich off of being a missionary? No. In fact, you probably should not get rich being a missionary. But what this does mean is that not only will you only have to fundraise for your personal needs, you won't have to fundraise for the needs of the ministry. And if you do have to do that, it's only a small portion. As an independent missionary, all of it's on me. I've got to fundraise all of the funds, not only for my life requirements, living, food, shelter, things to eat, things to wear, but also the ministry needs as well. And so that's something just to consider. That if you go with these large organizations, you're going to have access to a resource pool that independents just could only dream of. And so that could be a huge boon to your ministry. So if you're going into an area that maybe is more established in ministry, I would think that this is a good reason why you should join a larger organization rather than trying to go it alone. And finally, let's talk about what it means to be recognized as an organization. Now that means two things, and these are videos in and of themselves, so I'll try to be quick here. The first half of that is being recognized as an established 501c3 nonprofit in the United States of America. What does that mean? It means that when people give to your ministry and your activities as a missionary, they're going to get a tax-deductible receipt before they do their taxes in the spring. That's awesome. In fact, many people view that as a stamp of authenticity, that you are actually registered, the government's aware of your dealings and aware of your activities, and because of that, there's a sense of trust that is instilled in them, and they feel more willing to give to what you're doing. That's wonderful. If your organization has that kind of recognition on the federal or state level, then that's something that just goes even further in establishing your credibility. But then the other half to that is less formal, and that's where people recognize the name of your ministry. If I were to say, I'm Kenneth from Silk Road Mission to anyone in churches today, they wouldn't know who I am. They don't know who Silk Road Mission is. I'm just me. But if you say, I'm so-and-so with the IMB, if you're in a Baptist church, that carries a certain amount of weight. If you say I'm so-and-so with Mission to the World and you're in the Presbyterian church, that carries a certain amount of weight. If you say that I'm so-and-so from Frontiers or Wycliffe or YWAM, those names have recognition by people in the church. And for good reason. Many of those have been around for several decades, some of them even over a century old. And they have established themselves as credible and established workers for the gospel, as they should. And so I think it's important to understand that if you're starting out in mission and you're still a little unsure about having to go it alone, you're not really quite sure if you want to put in the effort to start something, I say join a large organization. You'll get the experience you need on the mission field. You'll get to work alongside established not only missionaries, but also ministries that have been in the field for a very long time. You're going to get recognition in terms of people are going to know who you're working with and going to know the values of your organization ahead of time. It's a wonderful thing when you're just starting out. For some of you, though, you may not like that. Maybe you do like the underdog image that an independent missionary brings, or rather, you would just like to be able to start something new and start something fresh. That's A-okay as well. Either way, having the recognition both on the federal and the governmental side and on the personal church-going side is important. And it actually is a huge boon to going with an established organization rather than going it alone. But just know that just because you have that recognition doesn't mean everything's on the up and up. You still need to investigate the organizations you're considering joining, making sure that your theology and their theology is on par with one another, and that there's going to be relational unity between you and their members once things happen on the field, which they always do. And the best way to do that is just to contact missionaries that are on the field for those organizations and get to know them a little bit. Ask them what kind of person fits best with your organization, and you'll get some pretty good answers that way. So again, 3 reasons why it's good to maybe even consider joining a large organization rather than going independent. So this brings us to our big question of this video. Independent with a large organization, which is the right choice for you? That comes down to you. I wish that I had a better answer for you. I really do. I remember whenever I was still doing my research phase and still trying to pray through my own call to missions, when people would tell me that, I would get so frustrated. I wanted someone to just give me the answer, tell me which organization to go with and where to go and make it easy for me. But our God is not in the business of doing that. He wants us to search him out. He wants us to look. He wants us to seek. He wants us to knock. And so this requires some work. This requires some work. You've got to actually ask the Lord these questions. Where do you want me to go? Who do you want me to go with? What do you want me to begin? What do you want me to continue? Where do you want me? And part of that means to take a step back and to spend some serious time in prayer. In fact, one of the things that I tell every person that asks me about what it's like being a missionary and how I got here, what are some steps they can take to get into the field, the very first thing I say every single time, pray. Pray, pray, pray. And then when you think you've prayed enough, pray again. Why? Because prayer is the lifeblood of a missionary. If you're not praying, you can't be a missionary. And so pray and ask the Lord to reveal to you where he wants you to go. Still, I've given you some things to consider, some pros and some cons about what it is like to be part of a large organization or to go independent. Weigh these options, pray, and then make a decision and go forward. You never know how things will change, of course, but be willing and be ready to step into an organization or to start your own, knowing full well that the Lord's going to be with you no matter what. So that's all for this video. I hope that some of this was helpful for you in your own mission journey. I know that at the beginning stages of my time overseas here, it was very difficult. I was really stressing about a lot of different things, but I hope that it was helping to give you at least a little bit of clarity about what to do next and what to pray for concerning going forward. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you'll stick around for other videos on my channel, other tidbits of life here in Taiwan and in the rest of Asia along the Silk Road. But most importantly, I hope that you will join me here on the field someday doing the work of the Lord. So with that said, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you, and may he give you peace. I'm Kenneth with Silk Road Mission. That's all for now, travelers. I'll see you in the next one.